Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is Chad here with an In the OT podcast for BetHub Sports Blog. Today we are breaking down the second round of the 2012 NHL playoffs. For those of you that are curious, yes, my first round series picks absolutely stunk the joint out. I went 3-5. The only teams getting right were St. Louis, New Jersey, and New York. And the two teams from the Eastern Conference were in Game 7. 1-goal games. Could have really gone either way. Both teams were down 3-2. I was lucky enough to go 1-7 in the first round. But nonetheless, that is all history. And as I stated in my introduction video before the playoffs, that I never had a great feeling for these series. And I do not like betting on futures here in series prices because so much changes from a game-to-game basis. I like to isolate single games and watch series develop before I start to get a feel and opinion on everything. And much is going to be the same here. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of a preview on every single one of these four series, give you guys who I think will win the series, not like I'm suggesting you go and bet a lot of money on it because I'm really not that confident on the series price, but also give you some tips on how I think the best way to make money in those series are. So we'll start with the Western Conference since they are, the teams that have been waiting around for a little bit longer and their series will get underway before those in the Eastern Conference coming off those Game 7s. And we'll start with Nashville and Phoenix because they're the first ones out of the gate. And I really do like the Predators quite a bit in this series here because I believe that they're pretty much a better version of everything that Phoenix does. Sort of that grinded out team. They rely more on defense and goaltending and a sort of scoring by committee. They don't have that prolific superstar offensive player. But the biggest difference here is Nashville has Shea Weber, a Norris Trophy defenseman. They have Ryan Suter, who isn't too far behind. And yes, I understand Keith Yandel and Oliver Ekman-Larsson are very good defensemen on Phoenix, but they don't match what Weber and Suter can do. And when you look at the depth overall of Nashville, you look at that second pairing there with Roman Josi and Colin Klein, much better than what Phoenix has to offer. And same thing with Hal Gill and the veteran Francois Bouillon. And Phoenix, they may have not allowed a lot of goals, but they sure allowed a lot of chances. And the reason why they don't give up that many goals is because Mike Smith was absolutely phenomenal. And if you look at that series against Chicago, they didn't outchance them. They didn't outshoot them. It was Mike Smith that simply stood on his head and actually stole that series. And when you look at Nashville, they straight up beat Detroit. They hammered them into the ground. They out-physicaled them. They out-willed them. And they just straight up outplayed them. And I expect that to be the case here. And, I look at these two teams offensively and I say, hey, they're pretty even, but I still give a slight edge to the Predators because of the fact that they have a couple more game breakers offensively with guys like Radulov, Kostitsyn, and what this Gabriel Bourque has been able to do. And when you look at the fact that they have so much depth, guys like Legwan are buying into a role. They have Fisher, and then even the youngster Colin Wilson. You've got the other Kostitsyn, and you've got Paul Gostad. I mean, it's just too much for Phoenix to handle that they can throw at you. Kostitsyn, Hornqvist, Erat, it just goes on and on and on. And as good as Phoenix has been with some of their veterans, with the likes of Vermette and Verbata and Shane Doan and Whitney and Pyatt and all these guys and Bodker, I just don't see them being able to match the overall depth of Nashville. And as good as Mike Smith was last series, I believe that Pekka Rinne is still the better overall goalie, and he was just as impressive as Smith was against Detroit. This team is a little bit more prepared for this. They won their first series last year, and Phoenix is sort of like how Nashville was last year, getting that first series victory for the organization off their back. And I think they're a little bit more prepared, having played Vancouver last year. And I really don't see Phoenix having a chance in this series. Out of all the series in the next round, I think Nashville has the easier way here. I look for them to win this series in 5 games, maybe 6. And from a betting perspective, I refuse to lay any sort of juice in a series price. But I will look to play on Nashville a lot on the road because of how well they did in Detroit in last series. And Phoenix doesn't have your traditional home ice advantage in Phoenix there. It's not exactly a strong hockey market where the fans are going crazy. And if you look at the standings in the regular season, Nashville's overall road record was 22-19 compared to Phoenix, who was 22-19 at home. So there really wasn't that much of an advantage. You saw Phoenix at home in the first round, 1-2. Nashville 2-0 on the road. So they are a team that can play good road hockey. Their style is suited for that, and I'll look to play them there. Naturally, you would want to lean to the under in this spot with these games, but the juice is going to be absolutely absurd with those 5 totals, so I'll probably lay off of them. And, maybe I'd even look to take Phoenix a couple times on the road because you might be getting a juicy price. price. And if they do get up Nashville after the first 2 games here, I don't think Phoenix is going to die that easily. And if I'm going to be playing on them, I always want to be taking plus money. So give me the Predators in 5 games in that series there. And now we will move on to the second series here in the Western Conference, which is the St. Louis Blues taking on the Los Angeles Kings. And St. Louis is the favorite here, but I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with that. I understand that the better regular season record, but I think LA has a great chance to win this series, and I'll go on a limb here and take the underdog to win in 7. I think they showed a lot of what this team's capable of against Vancouver. This talent here on this team is not true to the record they had in the regular season. I know that they didn't score a lot of goals in the regular season, ranked 30th in the league in offense, but from the moment they got Jeff Carter, they averaged over 3 goals per game. They have a ton of talent with guys like Kopitar, Brown, Richards, and Carter. And you look at other veterans on that team like a Jarrett Stoll. So they do have some offensive capability. Justin Williams, Dustin Penner. These guys can all score. It's just that the system hasn't necessarily allowed them to. And I think now knowing that they're going to real grind it out defensive series against St. Louis, who likes to play a similar style. Daryl Sutter's a very adaptive coach. I can see him maybe allowing this team to open it up and play a bit more offense and try to force St. Louis into more of an offensive style where they might not necessarily be able to keep up with LA's. I do believe they have better front end talent, and I believe that Quick is better than Elliott and Halak. I'm not saying that those guys didn't have better regular seasons, but he's been there a little bit more than them. Halak's injured right now. And, when you look at the series difference, I believe that they had a much harder series in Vancouver that prepared them for this versus St. Louis, who, San Jose had many chances in the games. They're just so soft. They got pushed over. Every time they had a lead, they blew it. I don't see Los Angeles blowing leads. And I look at their defense as just being absolutely stud right now with Drew Doughty, Mitchell, and Scuderi and Green. These guys are just absolute shutdown studs. And Voynov and Martinez, the 2 young guys, are playing fantastic. They're great on the road right now. Los Angeles, they went 3-0 in the first round. And anytime I have an opportunity to bet them here's a dog, I will look to do that. St. Louis was not that good at home in the first round. They did go 2-1, but they could have lost Game 5 very easily, trailing going into the third period. And same thing in Game 2, even they were trailing going to the third period. Game 1, they lost in overtime. And, I look at their offense and I go, they do have a lot of depth. But if they're top-end guys like Backus, Berglund, and Perron, they haven't really been in this spot before. And, TJ Oshie, Chris Stewart hasn't done much. It's been their veterans that have carried the load with guys like McDonald, Langenbrunner, and Arnott. But I just like a little bit more of the veterans of Los Angeles to get the job done here in this second round. So give me the Kings in 7 games. And now we will shift to the Eastern Conference, and we will start with the Rangers and Washington. And boy, this is a tight series. I could see this going either way. And, when I look at what Washington did in the first round, I got to give a lot of credit to Dale Hunter to, getting these guys to buy into that defensive system. They blocked shots, they back-checked, they forechecked, and, it was the role players, the grinders for Washington that were really the difference. You look at the ice time, it wasn't Ovechkin, Semin, and Backstrom doing things in the third periods of those games. But I do believe they caught Boston off guard a little bit. They didn't expect this kind of play from them. And I think that they're sort of playing into the hands of the Rangers to play that sort of similar style. And I just don't think Boston was on the same page, and they were not quite as cohesive. I think Holtby is not going to be maybe as lightly taken as he was with Boston, and Tim Thomas maybe being a little bit cocky in that team after coming after the Cup victory. I think the fact that the Rangers were down 3-2 and came back, they built on that a little bit. And last year, they had the experience playing with them. I think Tortorella finds a way to get the boys into this. They continue to shut down Ovechkin, Backstrom, and Semin. And I think the Rangers' style of play is similar to Boston, but a little bit more defensive, and I really do see them stepping up here. And another tight series. I see this going the distance. I'll take the Rangers in 7 games. I think that maybe Richards and Gaborik wake up a little bit here and provide some of the offense. But when you look at their role players, I just feel that this team here is going to step up a little bit more. And I think Boston was overrated going to that series, so it makes Washington look a little bit better. But I would not be betting any sort of money on a series price here. I'd be looking at the dog in every one of these games here. And if you can get some unders with not that much juice to the 5, I would take it, because the odds maker style might be pricing Washington as a high-scoring offensive team. And we know that really isn't the case come playoff time. And so, I'd pretty much just be looking at road teams and dogs in this series if you're going to bet on it. And when we look at the next series here, Philadelphia and New Jersey, I'm going to have to go with the Philadelphia Flyers here because there's a lot that I observed in the first round. New Jersey might be able to match them offensively in terms of their top-end forwards, but they don't have as much depth offensively. And on the back end, New Jersey is absolutely atrocious. They have zero offense whatsoever. They don't have anybody that's capable of moving the puck. And when you look at how physical those Philadelphia forwards are going to the front of the net, there's not a chance in hell they're going to be able to contain them. And we see Salvador going down tonight. They're only down to 5 defensemen. And you look at the fact that Philadelphia's just got a little bit more moxie right now. I mean, they have had to build a ton of confidence beating Pittsburgh versus New Jersey, having to go the distance, down 3-2 against a team that was arguably the worst in the playoffs in Florida. Brodeur is not what he once was. And I believe that Brizgalov is growing with confidence here, and he's going to be the better goalie in this series. And, when I look at those forwards on Philadelphia, it's just going to be too much for them to handle. Giroux is on another planet right now. Briere steps up in the playoffs. You look at what the kids are doing with Couturier and with Braden Shen, and Hartnell still playing fantastic. You got Jagr, Voracek, Matt Reed, James Van Riemsdyk is back in the mix now. I know that New Jersey has a good first line with Parise, Kovalchuk, and Henrique, and they've got Zajac, and they've got Sikora and Ilyash and some of these veterans, but I think the speed and the overall size and grittiness level of Philadelphia is just going to be too much for them to handle. And a couple betting angles that I do like in this series here, they haven't released the series price yet for these Eastern games when I'm doing this video here, is both teams had a better road record than home record, so I'd look to take both road teams if I can get some plus prices. And I also like the over quite a bit in these games here because everything that I mentioned in terms of New Jersey's inability to get the puck out of their own end defensively will catch up to them here. They have good enough offense that they'll be able to score a couple of goals from that top lines that they have that can put the puck in the net. And Philadelphia still is not great defensively, and I can see this turning into a bit of a run-and-gun series. If we get any 5s, I'll be pounding the over, but I think the odds makers are going to throw some 5.5s up out there. But I think out of all the series that we're going to see in the next round, this is definitely going to be the highest scoring one. So I think that New Jersey, they're still going to win a couple of games, but I do believe the Flyers will get this done. I think this is going to be another road-dominated series. So give me the Flyers in 6 games here. So to recap everything, I'm going to be taking the Predators in 5 games, the Kings in 7, the Rangers in 7, and the Philadelphia Flyers in 6 games here in the second round. And make sure to keep checking out my daily picks, guys, because I'll be throwing it down on the NHL all playoffs long. Once again, it's Chad here with BetHub Sports Blog and the In the OT podcast with the second round series predictions.